What's up, everyone? Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, DFS. My name is Sia Nejad. It's week 12, and I'm joined by Meg Shoup and Mike McClure. Mike, you weren't with us last week, but what's so interesting is that you still dropped your top three at each position, and I think some people really benefited off that. Because, Meg, I got to start with you. We didn't have the best of weeks. My stack was terrible. A couple of my primary running backs got injured pretty much immediately. It's just good. It was just one of those weeks for me. Was it for you as well?
It was one of those weeks for me as well. It was my worst week of the season. Both I was on Rachaad White. It was Sean Tucker, and then, injuries. So it was a very rough week for me, but we bounced back.
We bounced back. Mike, you had you weren't with us last week, but you had a pretty good week, at least as far as your top three were concerned. I know you were kind of big on Bijan, where a lot of the industry was a little down on him. How did your week end up?
It wasn't great. I had one lineup that essentially kind of covered everything or close to everything, which was, good. But the majority of where I was at was not cashing. I had the Jacoby Brissett doubles with Bijan. And unfortunately with Jamar Chase, or else we would have been north of 200 pretty easily and really covered it all. But by far not the best week, but also a good example why it's, important to build your lineups as a portfolio at times as well. And so not my best week though.
Yeah, I tend to go all in on players that I just like. I take that stand, and when it goes poorly for me, it really goes poorly. Obviously, when it goes well, it tends to go well. But it is, diversifying a little bit does make a little bit of sense. So I want to give a shout out to somebody tweeted at us. They had a takedown on, I guess it was the triple option, Meg. It was Alan Bellaterra. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He had a takedown and tweeted at us and thanked us. But Meg, I don't know that he was thanking you and me as much as, I don't know, maybe Mike. Or listen, the beauty of it is we have our picks, but we had a really long show, just you and me, talking about every single game. And that's what we like to do, because we might have a pick, but we might have talked about something else that you really kind of attached yourself to, and you went with it. I do also want to congratulate our top winners in our FFT DFS contest from last week, which of course the week 12 one is live right now in the podcast description. Max 40, Kush 6, Grass Chidge, D Kizzle 166, and Costa Rica NB. Those are your top 5 from the week 11 contest. Again, make sure you get into that contest. It's just $5. I guess we should get started. Meg and Mike, we've got an 11 game slate, 7 at 1 o'clock, 4 at 4 o'clock. As Matt has on the screen here, if you're watching us on the Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel, check this out, because these graphics are great. We see the bye weeks: Broncos, Dolphins, Chargers, and Commanders. Steelers, Bears. We're going to start there. And, with a lot of these games, we admittedly have a lot of questions. This is a 45.5 point total. It's a 2.5 point spread. Bears favored at home here. I guess the biggest question is what's going on at the quarterback position, but there's also questions at the running back position, specifically with Jaylen Warren. D Swift, of course, DeAndre Swift has a questionable tag, but it looks like he's tracking to play. Mike, I'm going to start with you. There's nothing super exciting about this game, in my opinion, from a DFS standpoint. The Bears are implied for 24 points. Do you like anything in this game?
I don't think so. Looking through all the exposures I've got here, I don't see much at all. I obviously, you want to know quarterback situation. And I will say it's a little weird because it's a tight competitive game, and 45.5, while it's not a big total, it's not, 40.5 that you may have seen in years past when these two teams get together at this point in the year. So I don't have any interest right now. It feels a little interesting. Like there's definitely pieces that I could see getting there. The unfortunate part or fortunate part about this week is I think there's a couple of kind of obvious value plays on the slate that kind of remove some of the need to speculate in games like this. So I'm going to be out here. As much as, again, it feels weird being, 45.5 is not 40. So I'm out here, but very interested to see if you guys have anything.
Well, Meg, I don't have anything in this game. I look at whether Jaylen Warren is playing or not is a question, but I guess if Kenneth Gainwell is the running back at 5,500, I mean, that does make sense, but we're going to talk about later in the show how much value there is across the board, including at the running back position. So Kenneth Gainwell on the road against the Bears rush defense that's been better since their bye, which was some time ago. I'm not super interested in that. The receivers I'm not super interested in. DeAndre Swift at 5,600 is interesting if it ends up being a contrarian play, because, again, I understand Kyle Monangai getting some of those high opportunity carries. but I still think at 5,600, I'd be willing to take a chance there. But again, just like Mike, I'm out on this game.
I talked to you pre-show and I said, Sia, there's a couple, games or teams that stand out to me, and we'll get to those. But there are games like this, and this is one of them that I was kind of speaking to when we were discussing pre-show, that I can't decide where my lean is. I could make a strong case on why this could go over or why this could be a dud and go under. And like Mike said, with the total being a 45.5 and a close spread, and likely most of these pieces, and unless Warren's out, I assume Gainwell would be chalky, but you got to think most of these pieces are going to be fairly contrarian. Maybe a skinny stack or a small, game stack would be intriguing to me once we find out the Rodgers news. So and the Warren news. So I guess I'm not totally ruling it out because I can see a world where this game does go over the total, and it being contrarian. Maybe you do want like even a skinny stack, like a Swift and Metcalf, or I know it's actually another good matchup for Pittsburgh tight ends. The problem was there's three of them. And that's another situation where I guessed wrong last week. I was so bullish on Pat Freiermuth. It was Darnell Washington just bullying people over. So, if the Pittsburgh tight end, the three of them were one tight end, they'd be amazing, but they'd also be a lot more expensive too. So that's all to say that I am considering pieces here, but I have not landed onto where. I think probably on the Bears side, I'd have the most interest in Swift or Odunze. On the Pittsburgh side, I'd probably have the most interest in potentially, obviously, Gainwell if Warren is out, and potentially one of the Steelers tight ends again, maybe Metcalf. These would all just be considerations as I gather more information.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like we're pretty much out on this game overall, and we're going to find out why later in the show. But I will say this. Caleb Williams at 5,700. If this ends up going over the total, Caleb Williams at 5,700 with either Rome Odunze or DJ Moore, who had the case of the drops last week. This Pittsburgh defense can be had. And I'm not a big Caleb Williams guy, but if I was trying to be a little tricky, Caleb Williams with one or two of his pass catchers would probably be the way I would go. I'm just not super intrigued by it. Go ahead, Meg.
Sure. I missed a big one. A big value receiver is Luther Burden. He has kind of emerged as the wide receiver 3 now. So Zacchaeus has gotten much less, routes run, and Burden is kind of now the wide receiver 3. So he's a cheap play in this game that can be explosive. And so I definitely have Burden in my player pool, especially to save some salary.
Mike, before we move on to Seattle and Tennessee, I'm curious how you value, not from a point spread standpoint, but from a fantasy standpoint, Aaron Rodgers versus Mason Rudolph. Because my take is I would never even consider like a Caleb stack, for example, if it's Mason Rudolph, where if it's Aaron Rodgers, maybe he pushes it down the field. But maybe I'm thinking of Aaron Rodgers from 5 years ago and not Aaron Rodgers from today. Would that matter to you who's starting at quarterback for Pittsburgh?
For me, it would not on this slate anyway. I don't think there's a massive difference. I think it's, the difference in the Bears defense for some of the other teams they played is probably bigger than the gap between Aaron Rodgers at this point and Mason Rudolph, who, again, Mason Rudolph he's not great. He's a backup for a reason, right? But he's been in the system for a long time and he understands it and knows it well. So I don't think it's that big of a change there. Losing a guy like Jaylen Warren potentially is way bigger of a deal than swapping from Rodgers to Mason Rudolph, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I will say I will play Kenneth Gainwell if Jaylen Warren is out at 5,500, because I could see, especially if it's Mason Rudolph, some dump downs to Kenneth Gainwell, who we know is a good pass catcher. Let's go to Seattle and Tennessee. So, Meg, this is another game, believe it or not, that I'm out on. I'm not interested in anybody on the Tennessee side. I mean, obviously, they have some injury issues that need to be monitored, particularly in their receiver room. But to be honest with you, when I filled out some lineups early, hand-built some lineups early, I wasn't getting to JSN. AJ Barner, I think, is an interesting, sneaky tight end play if you want to go there. But listen, Sam Darnold at 5,400, that's attractive. But, we're on the road here. I'm not getting to anybody in this game. Are you, Meg Shoup?
Yeah, I think the answer is nobody but Kenneth Walker. I do have some interest in Kenneth Walker at 5.4K. He has kind of emerged with getting a little more of the workload, another frustrating running back situation in a split backfield with Walker and Charbonnet. But we saw Walker get there last week. So I do have some interest for a likely very, very, very positive game script for the Seahawks and Walker at 5.4K. But the reason I felt the same way about you is we know what JSN can do. We know the target share. We know all of it. It's just, what was it, a couple of weeks ago when they had a massive lead, Sam Darnold threw 15 times or something like that. So if we get into a game script like that, where it's just a big blowout, a couple running back touchdowns, a defensive touchdown, something like that, that's where I'm not going to pay for the price or the chalky side of JSN most likely, which feels so scary, by the way. But yeah, for me, it's probably Kenneth Walker and get out for me.
Kenneth Walker is interesting. I'll note that his rushing yard total is in that high 50s range, if in case anybody wants to know that. But I do agree, in a positive game script, I kind of like looking at that prop for our prop show tomorrow. I mean, I might consider Kenneth Walker overs just because of that. This is a 13.5 point favored Seattle team on the road. This Titans defense has been pretty better than people think, I think, against the run. They've gotten some reinforcements back, so there's something to consider there. Mike, anything in this game that you like? It's only a 40.5 point total.
No, there really isn't. I mean, look, you want to play JSN 9K? Is there a chance that he's got 7 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown by halftime? Yeah, it's very, very possible. If he doesn't get that by halftime, I just worry about the need. Not that they have a difficult schedule coming up, but they should be able to take care of business here pretty easily. So I'm very much outside of JSN, and the thought process there is people aren't going to want to play him. And they're going to score points. The reason why we're shying away from the game is not because we don't think the offense can score. It's that we don't know where they're going to score necessarily. We don't know what the desire is to run it up, but would shock me very little if JSN has 2 touchdowns, like I said, close to halftime, and he gets there. So he can be in your player pool. Everybody else completely out.
So part of the reason I love doing this show is because as we're doing it, I can look at props and things of that nature. I want to back off my Kenneth Walker take of the over 50. It was 58.5, 59.5. Not because I don't like it, but because, and I have to look at the splits and maybe look at some of the coach speak and stuff, but Kenneth Walker's rushing attempt line is 14.5, and it's juiced to the under in some places, juiced to the over in others. If that drops to 13.5, which it very well could at certain places, I really like the over rushing attempts on Kenneth Walker. I still like it at 14.5, to be honest with you, at plus money in some places. But I'm just throwing that out there. I don't like the efficiency necessarily, but Kenneth Walker over rushing attempts, especially if it's at 13.5, I'm going to like that. Let's move on, because I don't think we need to waste time. Any more time on that game. Mike, real quick, are you playing JSN this week? You might have addressed that, but
I don't think so. Okay. He's in the player pool, but I doubt that I get there. Certainly not in my main 5 lineups that I play. I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, and for the record, he's, in terms of receiving yards, he is projected to be the get the most receiving yards on the slate. But again, this comes down to price and where the value is in other places. Let's go to Vikings Packers. Don't worry, folks. We're actually going to get to a game with some serious scoring. That's going to be Giants Lions in a second. But let's go to Vikings and Packers first. Meg, I mean, I watched every snap last week of JJ McCarthy, and everybody, it's not like I'm big. It's not like I've been celebrating the JJ McCarthy experience. I question whether he's an NFL quarterback. I always have, but there was such a good matchup against the Bears at home, all the things. And wow, some of those passes were troubling. They weren't bad. They were actually troubling. I was like, I'm not even sure who he's passing to. I don't even the guy's wide open, but I'm still not sure who he's passing to here. Either way, I can't get to Justin Jefferson. I'm not going to get to Jordan Addison. The other side of the ball, really interesting, because if Josh Jacobs is out, which I think he is going to be out, but we don't know that yet officially, unless there's some breaking news going on right now. Emmanuel Wilson at 5,300 seems like a good play, given how much the Green Bay Packers love to run the ball. Christian Watson at 4,600, I think, is very interesting, given his production as of late. Those two are the only people I'm considering in this game, and then I'm out. How do you look at this game, Meg?
I feel the exact same way as you do about the Vikings, just the JJ McCarthy experience. I can't keep going back to Jefferson or Addison or anything like that. So out on the Vikings, I'm with you on if Jacobs is out, I do have interest in Wilson at that price tag. And then I'd say that both Doubs and Watson are in my player pool as considerations. I don't know how often I'll get to them, but they're cheap for,
Yeah,
I definitely think they deserve to be in the player pool, and I'll definitely consider them.
I guess we got to keep an eye on Matthew Golden, make sure he's playing. But Dontavian Wicks at 3,500 actually makes a lot of sense. Again, I'm just trying to get cute a little bit with an option that people aren't going to take at the cheap receiver click. But I don't know. He's probably not going to get a lot of production. He's a guy that I think with the way Minnesota plays their defense, they attack, but they play that shell coverage. Like Dontavian Wicks, also Dobbs, the type of guys that can get some quick looks, but I'm probably not going to go there. So I just wasted everybody's time. Mike, anything in this game?
Yeah, I like Wilson a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think Jacobs plays, so I
Right.
think Wilson will be the guy. And part of the reason I don't think Jacobs plays is it's 6.5-point favorite. Like, I know that that's not a large favorite by an NFL team standards, but they do likely look at this game as one that they can win. It's a short turnaround. They go right after Minnesota and play on Thanksgiving against the Detroit Lions on the road. I think that if he's truly even healthy enough to be potentially playing in this game, I think he sits here. They bring him back a little more healthy in a game that's far more important, frankly, against the Detroit Lions on Thanksgiving. So yeah. I am pretty confident that Jacobs is not playing in this game, and I'll be playing Wilson.
Yeah, Wilson at 5,300 makes a ton of sense. An obvious click for me as well. All right, I think we can move on. So those were like three games that weren't super exciting to talk about, although we did talk about some high profile names that were fading and some names that we are leaning into for sure. Coming up next, though, the Detroit Lions in bounce back mode, just kind of getting embarrassed against the Eagles last week. Now they get the Giants and it's at home. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot to talk about. It's coming up next on Fantasy Football Today, DFS.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
All right, we're back on Fantasy Football Today. DFS, it's me, it's Meg, it's Mike. And it's the Giants and the Lions. The next two games, very exciting to talk about because we're going to go Giants, Lions, and then Patriots, Bengals. A lot of fantasy football today. DFS goodness there. Lions, speaking of goodness, minus 10.5. Big favorites. I'm laying the points. I like the minus 10.5. 50.5-point favorite. Meg and Mike, you were on the early edge earlier this morning. Meg, I know you highlighted that you liked the Detroit Lions team total over, which for the record is 30.5. That's a large total, but honestly, I kind of like that over too. Jared Goff at home. This isn't a great New York Giants defense. I think you could go a lot of different places. Meg, I'll start with you. What do you like?
Well, again, to speak to what we talked about on the early edge, and it will lead into why I like the Lions side so much here in DFS is we've seen this multiple times this season. We've seen this just in the Dan Campbell era. When the Lions have a down game, a bad loss, especially when it's an opponent that they can beat up on, and especially when they're at home, it's just like there's not enough points. There's not enough basically it's how many lines can I play, right? And so, yeah, as far as the team total, that's a high total. I love it. I did it with the Washington Lions game a couple weeks ago, and that was in Washington, and it worked immensely for me to bet the team total and then ladder the team total up. I think you can do similar here because that's the beauty of the Dan Campbell experience is he's not going to take that foot off the gas. And so in the DFS perspective, absolutely love Lions. It's going to be a min one Lions situation. I'm a hand builder, but it's going to be a minimum one Lions offensive piece for me. Absolutely in this game. So there's not many Lions pieces I don't like, especially because we don't have Sam Laporta. So it's been more condensed. Dan Campbell's calling the plays. He's getting Jameson Williams more involved. So I like it all. I like Goff. I like Gibbs. I like Amon-Ra. I like JMO. You could even make a case that these are the type of games they get Montgomery going more. So there's not a Lions piece that I don't like. On the Giants side, I don't think I've heard people in the industry talking about playing Dart. I don't think I'm going to do it because I do think he returns this week off the concussion. But there's so much narrative out there about him running recklessly and that kind of stuff. So I can't imagine a world where the end of the season that Jackson Dart is going to run the way he did, which was such a massive part of his game, his fantasy game and his fantasy points. The running element was such a massive component to that. So I don't think I'm going to get to Dart. I do think there's some Giants pieces. And for me, that might be, especially if Slayton's out, I might go back to Isaiah Hodgins, who was only 3.5K.
3.3.
3.3. Thank you. He put up some numbers last week at minimum price, and got, used to play for the Giants years ago and came back and, fit right in here in a absolutely depleted, Giants receiving core. So Hodgins is the cheap piece, and then all the Lions for me.
Mike, let's start on the Giants side, because I do think we don't always need to correlate. We don't always need to have a run back. But in this case, in a favorable game environment for a passing game script, it does feel like Wan'Dale Robinson and Isaiah Hodgins specifically are two guys to go to. Do you agree?
Yeah, I like Wan'Dale Robinson a little bit. I don't think that I'm going to stack it, though. I don't think that I'm going to play Jackson Dart with it. I think it's just going to kind of be a one-off piece. You got to question the Giants here, even wanting to bring Jackson Dart back out. I know it's still early in the season. Like, the season's over. It's lost. Like, they would be extremely well off to not win another football game if they, they got the young core. Who knows how long it'll really take Scatabo to get back, but you've got Neighbors, you've got Jackson Dart, who they clearly think is going to be the future there. All of a sudden you're a 2-win team and talking about draft picks. Like, I just think that it's interesting. I know they're not going to keep him off the field. They don't want to get him hurt. I think it's difficult to tell him that and to not, let him go be who he is and go play. But I could see more conservative game plan and just kind of mailing things in a little bit on the side of the Giants now that they've committed to a complete rebuild, but in a decent spot. So Robinson's all I'm going to get to here. Not going to play Jackson Dart. If Jackson Dart, if this game is like Lions score 40 points, Jackson Dart scratches to 24 late and he gets there with multiple rushing touchdowns, then so be it. And I lose, but I think there are many scenarios here where they don't have a lot of success.
Mike, are you stacking the Lions side? And if not, are there pieces on the Lions side that you're going to play?
I am not stacking the Lions side. Is it terrifying? Yes. I think that it's one where we might have 4 different Lions score a touchdown. My hope is that they were talking about short enough fields where we're not, overwhelming in terms of yardage. And ultimately none of them really pay off their price tag in a way that you just absolutely have to have them. With a guy like Amon-Ra and Gibbs, that's either 100+ yards, 10 catches and a touchdown, or like multiple touchdowns. I'm going to fade it. There are other spots that I like more this week. I could see somewhat of a limited game plan from Detroit as well. Big game on Thursday, short turnaround to Thanksgiving, big division game against the Packers on deck. We'll see. I'm going to be underweight the field though on Detroit.
Mike, how do you feel about if I said, hey, I'm playing a Jared Goff stack, but I don't want to play, 5 different lineups rotating in 4 or 5 different guys. So I'm just going to build one Jared Goff stack and I want to gobble up all the points with Jared Goff and Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, of course, David Montgomery is the thorn there, but how do you feel about a Goff Gibbs stack?
I like it. I honestly, I wouldn't play Goff without Gibbs, to be honest with you. And the scenario that I would get to Detroit, it would be true onslaught. It would be Goff, Gibbs, Montgomery, and the defense is how I would stack that. And then fill out the lineup the rest of the way you like. But basically play for the scenario that the Lions put up 40 points in this game. Montgomery finds the end zone at a $5,300 price tag. All he needs is essentially the 40 yards and a touchdown, and you're like not dead. But if he gets 2 touchdowns, you're in great shape. That's how I would play the Lions if you wanted to stack them. I would Goff, both running backs, defense, full on onslaught that way, and move on.
Wow, that is very, very interesting. If you're watching this on Fantasy Football, the Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel, you see Jahmyr Gibbs back-to-back games with 140+ scrimmage yards. I mean, he has been absolutely awesome. I will say this, Meg, when you talk about and we have it on the screen here too, Detroit won 13 straight games following a loss and a 17 points per game differential over that span, which is pretty amazing. But Meg, what's so interesting is you're right about Dan Campbell. I do agree that Thursday thing is looming, Thanksgiving game is looming, but not only does Dan Campbell do that, but now that Dan Campbell's calling the offensive plays, and that didn't look so good last week, you got to feel like he wants to put up, like, if he could put up 50 points, he would put up 50 points, right?
Exactly. That's the thing about Dan Campbell. When I remember this last year, because the best ball side of me, people were worried he was going to sit players week 17. That's just not Dan Campbell's DNA, right?
Yeah.
Like, because they had literally nothing on the table week 17. It's like that's right. It was for all the marbles week 18 against the Vikings. And so he didn't have to play a starter, and he did. And they went all out and they beat the 49ers in a high scoring game. That's just Dan Campbell's DNA. And like you said, I think he wants to cleanse his palate, really put up some massive points here to go into Thanksgiving. By the way, the Thanksgiving slate, oh my goodness, do we have a fun one on deck for Thursday?
Are you looking at it? Can you remind everybody what it is?
So I'm not looking at it right now, but it's Lions Packers to kick us off. Then we've got Chiefs Cowboys. And then if Burrow is back, we have Bengals Ravens. I mean, that is just one of the best Thanksgiving slates I can remember.
That's fantastic.
Both fantasy and real life implications,
Yep.
I put out a bet yesterday to take Lamar Jackson MVP at 80-1, and it was partly predicated on where the primetime games are.
Mm-hmm.
And again, because the MVP narrative, these voters, they're watching the primetime games. We'd like to think they're watching all the games, but that game on Thanksgiving night where Lamar, if he wins, will have won 5 in a row at that point. And then 2 games later, I guess it's 3 games later, he plays the Patriots and he has a chance at home to knock off Drake May. And then while he's doing that, and potentially, because it's a soft schedule for the Ravens right now, winning 8 in a row, during that whole span, we have Matt Stafford, who has a game against the Lions and then plays Seattle, but again, plays Seattle in prime time in Seattle. So if somehow he stumbles against the Lions or just looks bad against the Seattle Seahawks in a nationally televised game, primetime game, I think all of a sudden that Stafford narrative could take a back seat when you see Lamar Jackson winning 8, 9, and potentially 10 games in a row. I mean, isn't that what the MVP is? Like a 2-5 team being nursed back to what would it be? 12-5, or let's say 11-6. I mean, that's kind of like it's a definition of the MVP, a quarterback that comes back and turns his team around like that. I just think, especially when you include where those primetime games are and the ability to knock off Drake May and a tough road game in Seattle. I don't want to go off on my tangent. Check it out on social media, but I think 80-1 is a silly number. So I'm just throwing that out there. Patriots and Bengals. You mentioned Joe Burrow. Mike, this is crazy. I didn't think Joe Burrow was coming back this soon. The Patriots, we got to monitor this line because it's probably moving and shaking. Patriots laying a touchdown at Cincinnati, but again, that line might be moving. It's a 50.5 point total. And Mike, do we think Joe Burrow is playing on Sunday?
Yeah, I think he is. I think the market's at least certainly preparing for it. It's a huge statement to go from 8.5. I'm going to check again currently because we've had 6.5 this morning, which is a really, really strong statement going through that number. Yeah, we're currently 6.5. A lot of places right now. To me, it makes sense. They must win out, right? The Bengals, to have any chance, they essentially have to win out because you look at where they're sitting, right? This is the home game. After this home game, if they lose this game, they're all but eliminated, like completely eliminated. After this, they play the Ravens and the Bills back-to-back road games. I think if you bring Burrow back, you do it at home, and he wants to be out there. So I think he's going to go out there and give it the best effort. So I do think that Joe Burrow ultimately plays in this game.
Mike, if he plays, he's 6,500. I mean, I can't imagine he's making your top 3 list, especially without Jamar Chase being in this game. Is there anybody on that Bengals side, whether he plays or not? I mean, to me, I look at Chase Brown. I look at maybe taking a stab at Noah Fant. I mean, Yo Shavas is 4,100. I don't love anything other than Chase Brown. How about you on that side?
Yeah, Chase Brown, I like. If Burrow plays, I may come back just a touch on Chase Brown, just a touch. Still going to be in the player pool. If Burrow plays, I do like Yoshavash. I think he's a really fine play at that price tag. They've worked together. They've been in the same system for a while. Not having Jamar Chase is going to be a big deal. So yeah, I like Yoshavash if Burrow's playing. If Burrow's not playing, I'm only playing Chase Brown.
Meg, let's talk about the Patriots side, and then you can ratify whether you like Chase Brown or anybody on that side. But we see it here. Matt has put on the screen Ramondre Stevenson, his foot issue, Kayshon Boutte, hamstring, expected to return. It's Thursday morning that we're recording this, so we'll have to wait and see on that. That certainly complicates the Trevion Henderson situation at 6,700. And let's be real about what's going to happen here. I mean, Henderson's been great, but I don't think Ramondre Stevenson just lost all his carries because of the last 2 weeks. I just don't think that's going to happen. So if Ramondre plays, there's no chance I'm playing either of those guys. I think Drake May at 6,900, that's a different story. What do you say about this side of the ball?
Yeah, you laid it out perfectly. If Ramondre plays, it's just hard to get to either of those running backs because I do think I'm not saying 50-50 down the middle, but it's going to become then a split backfield. We love to target running backs against the Bengals, but then that's tough to do at these prices. So I'm with you. My big lean here is a big Drake May stack of Drake May, Steph Diggs, and Hunter Henry. We know we want to target tight ends against the Bengals. Didn't work for me last week because, again, I was on the wrong side. I was on Pat Freiermuth. He got 1 catch for 19. It was Darnell Washington just bowling people over. But neither of them found the end zone. But I really do like Hunter Henry stacked with May and Steph Diggs stacked with May. So I like the May, Diggs, Henry stack. And then on the Bengals side, I talked about on Early Edge this morning. I absolutely love the Chase Brown receiving line, but I really like him in DFS here because, and this is why I'm doing another like Sophia picture it. Picture what the 49ers have done with Christian McCaffrey when they've been so depleted in their receiving core. They use Christian McCaffrey as a receiver, and that really helped his floor and ceiling. And that's what I like about Chase Brown with or without Burrow here is I think they're going to have to use Chase Brown like a receiver, use him a lot. His routes run, his target share has all basically doubled with Samaje Perine out. Samaje Perine is doubtful. So already I just like his receiving line. But I think here without Jamar Chase, he is going to have to be used in the receiving game. Yeah. So that's why I like Chase Brown so much here, regardless if Burrow plays or not, because I do think that the Bengals, whether it's Flacco or Burrow, will keep this game interesting.
Mike, especially if it's Burrow, I think to Meg's point, it keeps things interesting. My issue with Drake May is that I don't know who to pair him with. There's just too many targets. Would you be against me playing Drake May solo?
Not at all. That's the only way that I plan to play him. Okay. I shouldn't say only. I would potentially play Henry at tight ends and maybe a 2 tight end build. But yeah, I'm not. I like Drake May. I'll probably play him, and I don't plan to pair him with a wide receiver.
I will say that if Boutte somehow misses the game, which again he's tracking to play, it looks like
right.
Mac Hollins at 4,200 would have my interest. I mean, without an extra receiver, Kyle Williams certainly hasn't. DeMario Douglas, they're not getting a ton of targets. So Henry has my interest there, Mac Hollins. But yeah, I think I'm going to play Drake May solo and maybe just run it back, Meg, with your call on Chase Brown. And I might call it a day. But I'm very intrigued by Drake May in this one. And obviously I'm hoping in that case, Trevion and Ramondre just don't bowl over the defense and get all the yards and touchdowns. I think we can move on from this game. Again, you got to monitor the injury report, especially T. Higgins. I should bring him up. I'm not playing him at 7,100. Meg, are you?
I was just going to say, I'm not going to play him if it's Flacco. If it's Burrow, I'll have a little more consideration because if it's Flacco, I against Christian Gonzalez, who, by the way, don't mean to take a big tangent here, but Ron Rivera's last year.
I know what you're going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Emmanuel Forbes over Christian Gonzalez. So, that still stings. But, Christian Gonzalez, I have a ton of respect for. So, not that he's going to they play enough zone that Higgins could still get loose. And it's not like it's going to be man-to-man coverage the entire game. But I would give Higgins at this price more consideration if it's Burrow, just because of their connection. If it's Flacco, I likely won't play Higgins.
The on-field and off-field decisions that Ron Rivera made during his tenure at Washington were staggeringly bad. And it might sound like I'm being hyperbolic, but if you're a Washington fan and you watch this, we've had a lot of bad coaches, right? For over the last 30 years, a lot of bad personnel decisions. You'd be hard-pressed to find something worse than some of the stuff that Ron Rivera did during the game, but also in the draft. Just unbelievable stuff.
My brother, who scouts players, used to go down to the Senior Bowl for a decade, and he lost his mind when Washington took Emmanuel Forbes over. And I don't know college football enough. I don't know prospects enough, so I'm kind of like, why? What's the big deal? Ranked in the first, And my brother was like, you have no idea how bad this is. And years later, oh, is it bad?
Yeah, that was like one of 100 bad things. That's just we see Emmanuel Forbes continue his career in LA for the Rams, and he's actually been okay. Had a really nice pass breakup last week, so good for him. But obviously, Christian Gonzalez was the better pick there. Jets Ravens. I don't know that we're going to spend a lot of time on this one. Ravens favored by 13.5. I made my case for Lamar Jackson at 80-1. For the record, that's 80-1 at a couple of different books. A lot of books have this at 45-1, which I still think is maybe worth a sprinkle. But the 80-1 at some major books really was eye-popping to me. Either way, I'm not playing anything on this side. Lamar 6,700, Derrick Henry 7,600, Zay Flowers 6,300. I think Zay could be interesting here. The other side of the ball, Mike, is a little interesting to me only because it's Tyrod Taylor, and I think that's an upgrade at quarterback. He's only 4,300. I don't like the receivers, but I will say Adonai Mitchell had some near misses, and they just went out and got him, and he's only 3,200. I feel like they're going to continue to feed their new guy, and he's, in my opinion, the most talented guy on the field. You could make an argument for Mechie, I suppose. But outside of that, it's Adonai Mitchell that's actually going to stretch the field. What are your thoughts on this game, Mike?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest. Like Mitchell, if you need a 3K guy, I think it's fine to speculate. Mostly just interested in the Ravens defense here, to be honest. I think that they could really limit the Jets in terms of overall points. Doesn't mean Mitchell can't get, enough catches and yardage throughout the day to ultimately pay off that tag. But I think it's Ravens defense, and that's it for me.
That's totally fair. Meg, what do you think of this game? Are we just out altogether, or is there anybody? I mean, I didn't even mention Breece Hall. I'm not playing him at 6,100. Anyone you're interested in here?
I like your call out on a cheap Adonai Mitchell, because it's good to have those in the player pool just as you're putting things together. That I think that is viable at his price tag, and with Tyrod Taylor is a quarterback upgrade. But for me, I think Lamar Jackson is still going to be cautious and limited in his rushing. So for me, it's Derrick Henry, because I'm seeing Derrick Henry to be pretty much a contrarian play and coming in at low ownership, just because he's in that kind of middling, that price tag where. But he's kind of been ramping up. He's had he had one game with 2 touchdowns a few weeks ago. I believe had a touchdown and over 100 last week. So he's kind of been ramping up. We always know that we like to kind of, as the weather gets cold, that's kind of the Derrick Henry time to put the snow tires on and, really get going. So I don't know. Here he's got an absolutely amazing matchup against this depleted Jets defense. So if he's coming in low owned, I like a contrarian Derrick Henry play.
I've been having a good few weeks with the NFL props, but last weekend I came to a thud as I went 0-3. One of them was Derrick Henry's under of 76.5 rushing yards. And it was looking pretty great because he hadn't broken off a big run, and he was like, okay, but he wasn't going to get there. And then here it comes. We're close to December, and Derrick Henry gets that second level. And it's just weird because no one's there. It's so often that we think Derrick Henry is just fending off guys at the second level. But the truth is, sometimes he gets to the second level and there's just nobody there. And so it's just up to somebody to chase him down 40, 50 yards down the field. That's exactly what happened. He had like a 56-yard run. There goes my under. But yeah, I mean, if he's going to be contrarian in this type of game script, 29-point implied total, this could be, Meg, to your point, it's not a sexy play. We don't like to play Derrick Henry at this price given the other players around him, but why can't this be a 2 or 3 touchdown game and 110 yards for Derrick Henry? This would be the game for him to do that.
And we always love playing Derrick Henry when he's a big favorite too, because we know, like, if there's a chance where they fall behind, that's where it's a little more nerve-wracking to play Derrick Henry. But when he's a massive favorite like this and against this Jets defense, yeah, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, you just hope it doesn't get so out of hand that like Keaton Mitchell doesn't come in or something like that. And he's getting a little bit more work, but I think that's an interesting contrarian play. I think we can move on. The last 1 o'clock game, we'll probably speed it up a little bit because I know y'all want to get to the cheat sheets and a lot of these games are really interesting, by the way, in my opinion. I think that's why we're talking about a lot of these injury situations are really interesting. And a lot of the contrarian plays you brought up, I might put Derrick Henry in my cheat sheet. That's the one slot I don't have filled out yet. Maybe he's going to be my contrarian play this week. Colts and the Chiefs. Mike, I got to start with you on this one. I got to think that in spite of the fact that this is a 50.5 point total, and that the Chiefs are 27. That's their implied total. For whatever reason, I look at the prices here, Mike. 6,800 for Mahomes, Rashee Rice for 7,700. Travis is reasonable at 5K. I feel like people aren't getting to this game. What's happening in this game, and what are you doing with this game?
I love it personally. It's, must-win territory for Kansas City. They get this at home. I think that the Colts had a lot of success early in the season, and I think it's going to slow down just a little bit. They finally are playing games outdoors, and it's been a big difference. So I like Kansas City in this spot. And I think that we're finally to the spot where it's just, we know exactly where the football's going for Kansas City. And it's going to go to Travis Kelce, and it's going to go to Rashee Rice. They combined for 22 targets a week ago. And I think that's a very similar workload here. I think Travis Kelce, I know this sounds crazy, but I think he's the closest thing to a free square on this slate.
Wow.
He's a flat 5K. Indy has been awful against the tight end. 13 targets in the last game. He looked good, looked healthy again. And it's kind of do or die, right? It's make you win this game or you're in serious jeopardy of missing the playoffs. And he's got maybe another year left at max. Maybe this is it. Yeah. I think that it's now or never. And those are the times where I don't want to bet against Patrick Mahomes personally. I think this is a good spot. He's 5K playing at home as a favorite. The game has a 50-point total, and he's coming off having 13 targets.
Mike, are you doing stacks with Mahomes, Rice, and Kelce?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Is that your favorite way to stack the Chiefs?
It is. Yep. I'm going to play all three of them. And again, pricing wise, it's very reasonable. Mahomes is second most expensive quarterback, but he's not over 7K. It's not like you're paying 7,500 or 8K for Josh Allen, right? It's 6,800. But it's made up for the fact that Travis Kelce is only 5K and Rashee Rice is 7,700, not up in the 8s.
One final question for you, Mike, before I go to Meg on the Chiefs. You're not running this back with anybody, I assume.
I'm not planning on it.
Okay.
Taylor's too expensive, and I'm not planning to run it back.
And one final question, because Kelce in that tight end spot, I like Trey McBride this week. Do you find yourself getting to some 2 tight end lineups?
Very much so. Multiple, a lot of 2 tight end lineups. All
right. Meg, what did you think? Because again, now I'm starting to get convinced, but I wasn't in on this game. And it's going to be like, if I do end up on this game, it's because Mike convinced me to have some shares, but it's certainly not like my favorite game or a top 2, maybe not even 3 game for me, but that's a pretty compelling argument. What do you think about this one?
We talked at pre-show about how there's a few games on this slate that I'm really struggling with. Again, I can make a case for the over, the under, more of a slugfest, a shootout, and this is one of them. The Bears, Steelers, and the Philly, Dallas those are the 3 that I'm struggling with. So I'm just being forthcoming and honest that I am struggling with this game and what to do with it, because it's not like there's really cheap pieces outside of Travis Kelce for his workload. I like Travis Kelce. He's in my player pool. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be super contrarian. We talked about that pre-show as well. We're talking sub 5% owned most likely. But I really am struggling of what to do here, because I do not know how I see this game script going. I get Mike's case for, the Chiefs and the Patriots against the wall and at home. So I totally get the Mahomes, Rice, Kelce. Right now, Kelce is the main piece in my player pool. And other than that, I am just admitting that I'm struggling and still trying to figure it out.
Totally fair. I'm actually looking at the prop for pass completions for Patrick Mahomes. While I'm doing that, Meg, you're out on a 10K Jonathan Taylor?
I have him in my pool considered if I want to, maybe it's on like the 1 p.m. only, like an ultra contrarian play. Because again, it's looking like he's going to be sub 5% owned, and it's because of his price, obviously. But, if he puts up another hat trick at sub 5% owned, I know that's going to be very hard against the Chiefs defense. But if he does, then that could be pretty powerful. So I'm not going to fully rule him out because of how contrarian he's going to be.
Mike, out on Jonathan Taylor at 10K?
Yeah, I'm not going to get there. So there's value running backs, and then I would much rather, I'd rather play Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs at their price points.
Mike, did you give any consideration to laying the 3.5 Kansas City at home here?
I did. The direction I would prefer still is actually Indy's team total under. You can catch that at 23.5. I think that there are many scenarios that Indy still has success, even potentially wins the game outright if it doesn't go well for Kansas City, without them hitting a 24th point in this game. So yeah, if I lean Kansas City against the spread, but if I had to play something here, it would be Indy's team total under 23.5.
Love that. Love that look. All right, we got to look to the 4:00 games and get to our cheat sheets and top 3 at each position. We'll cover it all right after this message from our partners.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons.
It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We're back on Fantasy Football Today, DFS, here on the Fantasy Football Today YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, of course, on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you join the $5 contest. It's in the podcast description and in the YouTube description as well. Jags and the Cardinals. Oh, by the way, I did look at the Patrick Mahomes completions prop because I was hoping it was 23.5. It's 24.5. It's a little high for me, but if it drops to 23.5, I kind of like the over there. Just throwing that out there. I hope you like us including a few prop talk topics throughout this show. 47.5 point total in this Cardinals Jaguars game. We've got the Jags laying 3 points on the road in Arizona. Obviously, we know Jacoby Brissett coming off that absolutely epic game where he fed everybody, most notably Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, and a little bit of Greg Dortch. Mike, I'll go to you first here. We do have to get some word on what's going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars injury situation. Brian Thomas, Travis Etienne, Tootin. We got to get some clarity there. But Mike, what do you like in this game?
Run it back. Give me Jacoby Brissett, Trey McBride, Michael Wilson. Like all three of them. I think they're going to have all the opportunity in the world once again. And I think it kind of proves also that, it wasn't necessarily a huge downgrade losing Kyler Murray to Jacoby Brissett at this point. And Trey McBride, I mean, you pencil him in for double-digit targets, right? So just essentially guaranteed. Treating him more like the wide receiver, almost like we used to with Travis Kelce. And then Travis Kelce is the cheaper tight end that you play as a double tight end. But I mean, I would be absolutely stunned if you didn't get 20 targets this week between Trey McBride and Travis Kelce. And I'm gonna put them in the lineups together here.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Are you getting to anything? We can talk about Arizona in a second on the Jacksonville side. Jacoby Myers at 4,700 does have my interest. Outside of that, I obviously need clarity on the running back situation. But for now, it's Jacoby Myers that I'm even considering, and then it's the Arizona Cardinals. What about you?
Yeah, on the Jacksonville side, I do want clarity on the running back situation because if one's out and one's in, then I may have interest in that running back because they have gone a little more run heavy of late. And to your credit, your point, maybe they're hiding Trevor, so they have been a little more run heavy. I would have some interest in one of the running backs if one was out. So I'll say it that way. As far as the Cardinals side, I absolutely agree with you on Trey McBride, treating him like a receiver, playing him in 2 tight end lineups in that case for sure. And definitely, I don't know that I will get to Brissett, but I definitely think Michael Wilson still needs to be on the pool. That was a big mistake by me, not including him the last week, and I paid for it. So he's in the pool this week for me, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if Marvin Harrison's going to be out, Jacoby Brissett's like a real quarterback. And so, Mike, your statement that he's not much of a downgrade, I mean, I actually think I don't think it's a hot take to say Jacoby Brissett's a better quarterback than Kyler Murray. I don't think think that's in controversy at this point. And Jacoby Brissett hasn't just proven that this year. He's proven that he's a solid quarterback his entire career. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree, obviously. And I think it's great news for Trey McBride. Just want to sell the idea of Trey McBride, Travis Kelce, double tight end lineups. You average their prices together. That's an average salary of $5,900. So essentially go look through the player pool, try to find 2 $5,900 wide receivers that are both going to likely get double-digit targets here. Be like the question I would ask, I'll find 2 that rate well in terms of individual plays as value. Would you rather have Travis Kelce and Trey McBride or Wan'Dale Robinson and Stephon Diggs? To me, it's just an absolute no-brainer. And it leaves the wide receiver positions completely untouched and open to play whatever you want. So I'm a big, big advocate of McBride and Travis Kelce together this week.
Absolutely love it. Two tight end lineups are back. Let's go to the next game, which we don't need to spend a lot of time on, although we do have Cowboys Eagles coming up and then Falcons Saints. But let's start with Browns Raiders. And I guess I should say, Meg, get this one out of the way. I mean, Geno Smith, only 4,500. I mean, nobody's playing Geno Smith against the Cleveland Browns defense, so that's whatever. Shedeur Sanders does appear like Shedeur Sanders is going to make his first NFL start. He's only 4,200. There's nobody I'd even consider playing here, Meg, except for maybe Quinshon Judkins or Ashton Genty on the other side. Outside of that, Brock Bowers is a no for me at 6K. This is a game where I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on.
No, I'm totally out. Just the defenses. They've juiced up the price on the price of the Raiders. I believe it's like 3,600 or something, 3,500. It's expensive, but against, Sanders in his first start, I don't mind that. And of course, I certainly don't mind the Browns against Geno Smith. So just the defenses for me are in my pool.
Yeah, I think the Browns are 2,900. And that was one of the things
they're going to be chalky,
right.
but for good reason.
That's fine. This is one of the things we got right last week, Meg. We brought up the Browns defense. They were like 2,100 or 2,200. And I think I might've said, I'm playing this defense. I think I played them in pretty much every lineup. That really worked out. Mike, anything in this game that you like?
No, Raiders defense. Browns, you talk about, I like their defense too, but I like the Raiders defense just as much, if not more. Will certainly be a more contrarian viewpoint, I would think. Maybe not, but yeah, I like the Raiders, both defenses basically.
Yeah, Raiders 3,500 and the Browns 2,900. Let's go to Eagles Cowboys. I mean, this one, I was going to say maybe not a lot of defense in this game, but the Cowboys defense is a little improved, and we know the Eagles defense is good. 47.5 point total. Eagles on the road favored by 3. Meg, I really like the pricing on the Eagles side. Jalen Hurts is 6,600, but perhaps more importantly, AJ Brown's 5,900 and Devontae Smith is 5,600. I feel like a lot of people are going to look at those prices and want to play those guys. On the other side, we got CeeDee Lamb, 7,900, Pickens, 6,900, Javonte, 6,500, and Dak, 6,400. I wonder, are you getting to this game, Meg?
This is the third one that I struggled with, honestly, that I keep going back and forth. Like, could this go way over? Could this go way under? I could make strong cases for both. So this is admittedly the third game that I'm really struggling with how to play this week, because you have Lane Johnson, the injury on for Lane Johnson and the Eagles. That's a big, big deal. So that makes me less interested in Hurts and Saquon Barkley. And then Dallas defense does look a little improved. I know that was against the Raiders, but I do think there are some improvements. They got some guys back. They made some trades. So I don't know that I'm interested in Saquon here. So on the Eagles side, the one I'm probably the most interested in is Devonta Smith, because Dallas plays a lot of zone coverage. We know AJ Brown tends to excel in man coverage. And again, these defenses these days, it's a mix. It's not like 100%, right? But if they are leaning more zone coverage, that makes me like Devonta Smith more than AJ Brown when they're similarly priced. And I believe AJ Brown's looking to be a little higher owned. So that's where I'm at on the Eagles side. On the Cowboys side, Dak actually looked pretty good in this first game, the very first game of the season. They were able to get the running game going, because remember, that's when Jalen Carter was suspended for, spitting. And so I don't know that they're going to be able to get the run game going. So I don't mind going maybe a contrarian like Lamb. I don't think I'm going to do any quarterback stacks on either side. What I'm leaning the most to, after struggling to even explain how I'm struggling to kind of handicap this game, is Devonta Smith on the Eagles and Lamb on the Cowboys. Lamb had a couple massive drops, if you remember, in this NFL kickoff game. So I wouldn't mind going back to Lamb here, just because they can move them around so much.
Yep.
Mike, what do you like in this game? I agree. Devontae Smith at 5,600. I'm going to be playing a lot. I'm going to consider Jalen Hurts stacks, maybe even double stacks, especially if this running game gets stymied. Do you like anything on the Eagles side, and are you playing any of the Cowboys?
Yeah, I like both sides of the game, to be honest with you. It's a dome controlled environment. Well, Dak, he's going to play. It's a hip injury. Like, he's limited. He's going to play. I kind of like Dak to CD just a little bit. I agree with Meg. CD is definitely the guy that I want here. He was out gambling, throwing up at 7:30 a.m. on the game day. Like, that's a fact. And it happened. And, it happens at some point to players in the career. He had his worst game of the season when he went out there. And some of that was probably only because the game was out of reach. Like if the game was competitive, he probably still gets to 100 yards. He probably still has a fine game, right? I think he's going to have success here. I think in a big way. I think he'll be earning more targets against this defense than Pickens will. Pickens will still have the deep shot, but you go back and look at all the games that Dallas has been competitive in, and that's where CeeDee Lamb gets the target share. And when I say competitive, like trailing or competitive, I think that happens again here. So I like CeeDee Lamb a lot. I like Devontae Smith a lot. I think that Saquon is interesting as a contrarian play. Where I would be playing him was, instead of Jonathan Taylor, and most direct correlation or most direct pivot would be getting off of Jahmyr Gibbs at 8,300 and on to Saquon at 75. I think the price point's pretty fair there.
And Jalen Hurts stack or double stack, would that be a consideration for you?
It's in consideration. I prefer Mahomes straight up. I'll tell you how I'll probably do it is I'll probably have Mahomes, Kelsey, Rice, and then Devontae Smith as a receiver in my lineup is probably what I'll do. And if Jalen Hurts gets there with 3 rushing touchdowns, it's, so be it. But that's probably where I would be. So I'd be out on Jalen.
Okay, let's move along to our last game before we get to our cheat sheets and top 3. Falcons and the Saints. Kirk Cousins getting the start for the Falcons, as we know that Michael Penix is out for the season now with another ACL injury, which is really unfortunate. Drake London not expected to play in this one. Mike, I'm not playing the Darnell Mooney game like a lot of us played, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago when I believe Drake London was out. Kirk Cousins was the quarterback in that one too, if memory serves. I don't really like this game. I'm not playing Bijan at 8,500. I wonder if you're going right back to him, but I do like Alvin Kamara at 5,500. I think Olave is an interesting contrarian play at 6,400. Not much I like in this game though. Mike, how about you?
I like Bijan. I may not jam him in. Some of it will definitely depend on, injury reports on those value running backs that we really want to play. But I do like Bijan. I think he'll get there through volume again. Everything else I'm pretty much out on.
Yeah. Meg, what do you like in this one?
I am considering Bijan for the similar reason of Chase Brown. Are they going to have to just kind of use him as a receiver? But it's a much higher price point than Chase Brown. So I don't know how often I'll be able to get to Bijan, but considering Bijan, I like your call on Kamara and Olave on the other side. Definitely have them in the player pool as well. But other than that, not much else.
Yeah, Mike, Kamara at 5,500, given this game environment and expected workload, doesn't that seem like super cheap? I feel like if Kamara's price was 6,300, we'd be like, okay, I guess that makes sense. I'm not playing him at 6,300, but doesn't this seem a little low?
It could be. The problem that I've got with it, to be honest with you, he's got a season high of 6 targets and, a median's like 3. I want more volume in the passing game for Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
We've seen him, have 20 rushes a couple times. That typically happens when they're winning football games, not losing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be out on it. I get the interest and he certainly has the upside, but I'm going to be out on it. He's also nursing an ankle injury. I don't think it's super serious, but yeah.
Totally fair. All right, let's do our cheat sheets. Meg and me have the cheat sheets, but of course Mike has the top 3 at each position. Meg, I'll start. Actually, no, you start because I started last week, I think, and we didn't have a good week. So let's go back to you starting. Let's go our favorite stack, chalk by chalk fade, contrarian, and value play.
Sure. I talked about my favorite stack is Drake May, and I'm with you guys. You can do Drake May naked. You could do Drake May, just Hunter Henry. I'm going to do Drake May, Diggs, Henry, but I am going to probably do some where it's Drake May solo or Drake May and just Hunter Henry as well. So I'll have all those options, but my favorite stack is the Drake May stack. Chalk by is Chase Brown for all the reasons I mentioned, kind of use him in that receiving game. In that same game environment. Chalk fade for me is going to be AJ Brown. Seeing him coming in at relatively high ownership, I'm a little worried about Lane Johnson being out. I think if Dallas plays a lot of zone coverage, I like Devonta Smith a lot better. Contrarian, I'm with you. Sia Derrick Henry, if we're getting him at like 6% ownership or, somewhere around there, I like that in a game where they are massive, massive favorites and a great, great matchup. And then my value play is going to be Isaiah Hodgins, because I very much, as I made clear earlier, do love a lot of Lions pieces. So not that you have to run him back with the Giants, but Isaiah Hodgins is so cheap that I don't mind going there for value.
You know what's funny, Meg, is I didn't realize you had Derrick Henry as your contrarian play.
That's okay.
Because
We're going to lock arms here. That's perfect.
Well, when you gave your dissertation on him being a contrarian play, I was like, oh, I'm convinced. I didn't realize that you actually had him as a so he's my contrarian play as well. But for purposes of the cheat sheet, I may change it later just so we have a little bit more variety. But for at least purposes of this show, I do have Derrick Henry as my contrarian play. My favorite stack, I mentioned it. I like Goff and the Detroit Lions to pile up some points, and I'm just going to pair him with Jahmyr Gibbs. I think you could pair him with a couple of different pass catchers, including, of course, J-Mo and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and maybe you throw Brock Wright in there if you want to. But we talked about 2 tight end lineups, and Brock Wright doesn't actually fit in there. But Goff to Jahmyr Gibbs is my stack. Trey McBride is my chalk fade. I'm just not going to play JSN. I'm not going to play Jonathan Taylor, but my official chalk fade is JSN. Contrarian play, like I said, Derrick Henry. Value play, Emmanuel Wilson. I do want to mention, speaking of potentially having to change things on the cheat sheet. So Josh Jacobs is going to go through individual drills today at practice. So we're going to have to wait and see how that goes for him. Maybe we'll have to wait till Friday till we actually find out what's really going on with Josh Jacobs. But this Emmanuel Wilson does have an asterisk next to it in the sense that he might not be the starter, but certainly at 5,300, he's about. I like your Hodgins play. We did talk about some other 3K guys that you and Mike like quite a bit. And honestly, if I'm going to play a 5,300 guy in the value position, I may as well speak to what Mike talked about with Travis Kelce at the 5K position, which brings us to the top 3 at each position. Mike, talk to me about your top 3 quarterbacks.
Well, Patrick Mahomes is going to be one for me just because of the pairing and the volume and the do or die must win situation. Jacoby Brissett will be number 2. I really like what I've seen there in Arizona, and it's kind of similar to Kansas City. I think that they're going to throw the football and where the stuff's going to go. And then for me, Drake May, just that's where I kind of want to go. Like the scenario where the Patriots go out there and score 30 points, I think is very legit. Whether or not it comes from, all the one guy, that's the question, right? I don't know where I'm going with Drake May, and he's got rushing upside as well. So I'm going to play him without a stack. But I like Mahomes, Brissett, and Drake May.
All right. How about top 3 running backs?
Emmanuel Wilson, I'm listing number 1. I know we're getting reports that Jacob's going to do some individual drills today. I still think that he stays loose and gets those drills in, but sits this game and plays on Thanksgiving personally. We'll update this if not, but if Jacobs is out, Wilson, I think you got to play. Chase Brown, number 2 for me for right now. And then Bijan is the big spend that I want still. I'll prioritize him personally over Jahmyr Gibbs, over Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry. So Wilson, Brown, and Robinson.
And I think all 3 of these guys would be good for cash as well if you're considering that. And if you want to come off of Bijan at his high price tag because you can't afford him, we talked about a lot of running backs in that 5-6K range, including Alvin Kamara. I mean, maybe that's not a good play, but there was some other cash options we talked about during the show. Top 3 wide receivers, Mike.
Rashee Rice, Wan'Dale Robinson, Devontae Smith. Wan'Dale is in close consideration with Michael Wilson. Just full disclosure there. I do like Robinson a little bit, though. I think the volume will be there. I think that receiving core's thin, and I think that they'll have to get the ball out quick, and Wan'Dale Robinson can kind of live around the line of scrimmage and rack up PPR points that way. Devontae Smith, as you mentioned, just too cheap, in my opinion, for a matchup that I believe will be pretty competitive against Dallas. I think Dallas is good enough offensively to really push here, and I think Devontae will sit down in that zone coverage. So Rice, Wan'Dale, and Smith. Note that Michael Wilson for Arizona is very close to Wan'Dale.
There's a very good chance on the prop show tomorrow I have Devontae Smith's over. It's something I was considering as of last night. Mike, talk to me about your top 3 tight ends.
As usual, you were mostly correlating my tight end with my quarterback. Direct correlation this week to the top 3: Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, Hunter Henry. Heavy focus on the first 2. I think both of them received double-digit targets or a combined 20 targets between the 2. Again, if you play them both, it's an average cost of $5,900. Very difficult to replicate that with the wide receiver position. and it frees you up to play some of the better wide receivers, in my opinion, like Rashee Rice. So I like those two a lot. Henry at 3,900 would be my preferred stacking partner if I were to play Drake May lineups with someone. Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, Hunter Henry.
And Trey and Travis in cash, either together or apart, I think is where you want to be there. And obviously these wide receivers, all cash viable. Let's see. Let's do Meg. I put you on the spot now. So first of all, you had a prop for tonight for Thursday Night Football, but I also want to know what you think about the 5.5, 6-point spread in the Texans game.
I'm struggling because I am also leaning. I don't have an official play on the total, but I'm leaning under. So I think Buffalo wins, but I think it's close. So I'll go the Texans cover. Don't feel confident about any of it.
Yeah, I kind of lean to the Texans as well, especially at 6. I lean to the under. I lean to first quarter unders and first half unders as well. Mike, what's your take on this game?
Big game for Buffalo. My take is that Davis Mills has been serviceable against two divisional opponents that they've scouted for years and know very well, being the Tennessee Titans, who are kind of an easy out for anyone, and then Jacksonville. There's just a lot of data on the way they like to play. Less so on Josh Allen, because Josh Allen is essentially Superman. He can beat you with his legs. He can beat you with his arm. They're highly motivated here to really start to position themselves in the AFC in terms of seeding. So if I had to play it, as much as I don't love laying a bunch of chalk on the road on a short week, it would be the Bills at 5.5. I'd make the case that this could be closer to a 7.
Josh Allen in your captain spot, or would you go somewhere else?
I haven't run anything yet, but yes, he's certainly going to be a viable and the most popular captain at this point. I would say James Cook as well would be a very fine choice. I think he'll be involved pretty heavily here. I know the conventional wisdom is you don't run on the Houston Texans. I think Buffalo still will have a little success doing so.
And Meg, you like James Cook to maybe catch a couple of balls too. We talked about that on the early edge this morning. If you want more insight on this specific Thursday Night Football game, and you're listening to this show, but for whatever reason you don't watch the early edge, make sure you watch especially Thursday and Monday. We really lean into Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. These two were on the show. We answered everybody's questions. We talked about all the players that we had interest in, which if you're playing Showdown, you might want to listen to that show and maybe construct your lineup just predicated on that. Also, if you're listening to this show and you're not already registered for the Splash Sports contest, it's a free contest. $1,000 is on the line. All you got to do is go to splashsports.com/earlyedge. It's a pick'em contest. Once you register, which takes like 60 seconds, maybe less actually, you pick all the week 12 games, and that's it. And we've got, I think the top prize this week is $150 to first place, and its second is, I think, $100, and it goes down from there. Top 50 get paid out, and it's a free contest. Again, splashsports.com/earlyedge. Check out that contest. That was a long show. We went kind of long, but again, Meg, I feel like we just had a lot of stuff to cover.
Yeah, a lot of stuff to cover. Just good conversation among the three of us. I'm actually scared to go back and look at my Splash Sports results from last week, but I'm going to do that right after this and make my picks for this week. But yeah, no, this was fun though. I think we covered a lot.
I didn't look at my results, but I was told my results because guess who tied me? Buckets. Mike knows Buckets, of course. Yeah. I tied Buckets, which is thoroughly embarrassing. Granted, it wasn't like last place or anything. I was in the top third, but you never want to be tied with a guy who doesn't even know the NFL teams. And that's what happened to me last week. So it's bounce back season for me. A lot of bragging rights on the line in this contest. It's not always just about money, but in that frame of mind, we want everybody to have green screens and do what Alan Bellaterra did last week in terms of taking down a contest. Mike, thank you so much. Meg, thank you so much. And of course, Matt, thank you so much for doing everything on the injury reports, the graphics. And I should mention, in case people are wondering about weather, it doesn't seem right now that there's a lot of weather-affected games. That's why we didn't bring it up. So again, not high winds or snow or precipitation. We're just not seeing that across this particular Sunday slate. That is subject to change, and we will cover it like we always do. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great week 12. We'll see you next time on Fantasy Football Today, DFS.